Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Dai-chan here, and you're watching the Waifu Files, a series where we discover and celebrate various anime and games through their lovely ladies. Recently, I covered characters designed by the late Mutsumi Inomata, and one of those waifu was Velvet Crowe from Tales of Berseria. That game is near and dear to my heart, so I want to dedicate this episode to it entirely. I'll include my previous segment on Velvet, while adding the 10 other waifu Berseria has to offer. Before we get started, don't forget that you can order a dakimakura of me from Cuddly Octopus. Celebrate your fandom with the most huggable merch out there. It's spicy, so I can't include a direct link, but all it takes to find is a simple Google search. Without further ado, let's dive in. Mila was so amazing that I didn't think her design could be topped, but then Inomata put out her boldest, most amazing work with Velvet Crowe in Tales of Berseria. I remember seeing this badass babe and being shocked with disbelief, unable to comprehend how such a sexy design would ever get approved, for a game rated T for teen no less. I consider it a miracle, and Velvet's gone down as one of the strongest, most profound characters in JRPG history. Hers is a tale of betrayal and revenge, where you support an anti-hero on a quest that could only ever end bittersweet. You see, Velvet lived peacefully with her little brother Laphicet. He was sickly, and so Velvet took care of him, with the help of Arthur, or Artorias Colbrand. The two trusted Arthur after he saved their lives during a scarlet night, during which the moon turned blood red and demons attacked En masse. Arthur even taught Velvet how to fight. On a different scarlet night, however, Arthur does the unthinkable. Bound, unable to stop it, Velvet is forced to watch as Arthur sacrifices Laphicet, stabbing and throwing him into a deep shrine. When Velvet tries to follow after him, she is cursed, transformed into a Therian, a kind of demon that feeds off of other demons. As horrific as this is, Velvet uses her new form, specifically her massive demonic arm, to try and avenge her brother's death. Instead, however, Arthur captures Velvet, locking her away in a remote prison where she subsists off of lesser demons. After 3 years of this torment, she has the chance to break free and target Arthur once more. Now, however, the world worships Arthur as a hero and fears Velvet as the Lord of Calamity. Apparently, Laphicet's sacrifice protected their world, yet Velvet refuses to forgive Arthur, teaming up with a band of misunderstood vagabonds to take him down. Velvet is cathartic release incarnate, filled with empowered fury and rebellious spirit. This reflects in her edgy, revealing outfit. It's amazing that Inomata, a woman in her late 50s at the time, came up with such a cultured design. Perhaps her age was a major influence, as honestly, Velvet wears more clothes than, say, Conan the Barbarian or He-Man. Regardless, the result is one of my all-time favorite waifu. She's easily one of the best characters in all of fiction. Now, before everything went to hell, Velvet and her brother lived with their older sister, Celica Crowe. She was a caring and compassionate woman who met Arthur in the woods outside their village. She fell in love with and married him. The two of them conceived a child, but before its birth, a scarlet night occurred and demons attacked them. Celica was chased to the forest temple, and while Arthur fought to save her, he let his guard down for just a moment. Celica jumped in the way of a demon's attack, which sent her plummeting down the shrine's pit to her death. This tragedy was born from human nature, specifically their inner darkness or malevolence. Beings who succumb to their malevolence transform into demons, sparking a chain reaction of death and malice. Arthur was an exorcist meant to slay demons, and he vowed to put an end to malevolence by resurrecting the Empyrean Innominat. This godlike being could wipe away all human emotions, forever preventing malevolence in the birth of demons. His cult of exorcists at the Abbey serve as Velvet's enemies throughout the game, and it's tragic how all of this started from the death of such a kind woman. While I can understand Arthur's grief, it ironically corrupts him in a different way. In order to fight the demons, exorcists utilize the help of spiritual familiars called Malakim. They are powerful arts users that often can't be seen by the naked eye. Exorcists, however, are trained to interact with them, often forming a partnership or oath. When Celica and her unborn child perished during the Scarlet Night, they were reincarnated as Malachim. They share their predecessors' souls, but develop as completely different people. Celica's Malach, Ceres, remains by Arthur's side, aiding him with her flame arts until the next Scarlet Night. As it turns out, Arthur sacrificed Laphicet as part of a ritual called the Advent, which greatly expanded the Malachim's presence in the world. Afterward, practically everyone could see the Malachim, allowing for a whole new generation of exorcists to fight for Arthur's cause. Normally, Malachim employed by the Abbey have their sense of self sealed away, but Ceres was an exception. She knew that Arthur meant to save the world, but she ultimately rejected his means of doing so. Ceres, who inherited Celica's memories during the Advent, realized how much her death corrupted Arthur. For as much as she loved him, she knew he had to be stopped. In a shocking betrayal, Ceres visited Prison Island and freed Velvet from her captivity. During their escape, however, a dragon assaults them, and Ceres suffers a fatal wound to save Velvet. In her final moments, she asks Velvet to devour her like she would the other demons. By doing so, Ceres sets in motion Arthur's eventual demise, though regrettably, it comes from Velvet's corruption. Regardless, it seems Velvet and Ceres find camaraderie in each other. Velvet carries on Ceres, and by extension Celica's desire to free Arthur from his suffering. Once again, back before all hell broke loose, Velvet's days in the town of Abal were pleasant. She often hung out with her childhood friend Niko, a feisty, rebellious young girl. Against her parents' wishes, Niko dated an apprentice veterinarian while owning 2 puppers named Orthy and Russ. Niko wanted to learn from Velvet how to make quiche for her boyfriend, but that never came to pass. Instead, during the Scarlet Night, she and the other villagers were infected by malevolence, adding to the demon ranks that attacked Velvet at the forest shrine. Since Velvet's Therian abilities devour malevolence, these demons turned back into their human forms after she slaughtered them in a berserk rage. It was traumatizing for Velvet to discover she had just killed her neighbors, including Niko. Digging deeper into this trauma, the exorcist Melchior Maven later uses an art to restore the villagers as an illusion. The bastard toys with Velvet's emotions, tricking her into thinking her best friend had somehow survived. He's a real piece of work, but he's in part responsible for taking care of our next waifu, Magilou Maven. Or, let's see if I can get this right. Magi Gigika Miluding Dodin Nolu Rundu. This bizarre name isn't even her real one. Many years prior to the main story, she was born as a girl named Magilanica. This was well before the Advent, so when her parents discovered she had an affinity for seeing Malachim, they abandoned her. As a result, Magilanica grew up under a circus troupe that forced her to participate in their act as a witch who could see ghosts. They practically tortured her into performing as part of their freak show. Her only solace was a silly normie Malak named Bienfu, whom she formed a pact with. Luckily, Magilanica was rescued from this circus when Melchior attacked it, making his assault look like an accident. He took her in as the only survivor, renaming her Magilanica Lou Maven. As his adopted daughter and protege, she learned to actually harness her abilities, rising within the Abbey to become one of its legates. That said, she failed Melchior's final test, which showed her an illusion of being back with her parents in a fantasy where they actually loved her. Magilanica chose to embrace this illusory world over her real one, causing Melchior to disown her. Abandoned yet again, she went along as Bienfu took her to the elder Normine Grimoirh. Having lost her former identity, she once again renamed herself Magilou. After leaving Grimoire's care, Magilou was arrested by the Abbey for practicing unlicensed witchcraft. She was locked away at Prison Island and escaped when Velvet freed the other inmates. Magilou and Velvet, being in similarly dire straits, travel together on the open seas. She has a score to settle with Melchior, and thus fights in the party against the Abbey. Her exact age is unknown, and it's implied she uses her magic to stay young and smexy. She's quirky, yet fashionable, the only waifu I know to wear a skirt made out of books. Having her around is an absolute delight, and I stamp her a certified favorite. That said, for as much as I enjoy her bubbly personality, it's kinda sad how all of her past struggles are buried beneath it. When Magilou was arrested by the Abbey, her Moloch Bienfu separated from her and rejoined with an exorcist named Eleanor Hume. Like Velvet, Eleanor lost precious family during a Scarlet Night. Hoping to put an end to demons, she joined the Abbey as an exorcist, becoming one of their top 10 praetors. Though her intentions are noble, she was naive to the Abbey's inner corruption. She would notice that entire villages would go unprotected from the demonic threat, all because they weren't important to Arthur's greater plan to resurrect Inominat. Bienfu is much happier to have sworn an oath with Eleanor, as she treats him far more kindly than Magilou did. That doesn't stop Magilou from reforging her oath with Bienfu. She needs the little guy for full control of her arts. Eleanor's kindness extends to her lamenting the death of innocent strangers, for which Velvet calls her a crybaby. Her resolve begins to conflict with the Abbey once she's assigned to follow and observe Velvet. As part of Velvet's party, she begins to see the world from a different perspective, learning that her organization doesn't necessarily have the people's best interests in mind. An emotionless piece built atop a pile of sacrifices is far too cruel. Thus, she joins Velvet in earnest, fighting against Arthur while aiming to bring peace to the world some other way. Fun fact, in both English and Japanese, she's played by the respective actresses of Ryuko Matoi in Kill la Kill. You really wouldn't think it, given their personalities are completely different. She's no tomboy, but rather a well-mannered lady who fights with grace and discipline. Part of Arthur's plan to stave off malevolence was to concentrate it at specific locations. Other Therians like Velvet would be sealed away, serving as vessels for their region's malevolence. Kamoana was a young girl from the tropical village of Haria. She lived with her mother, Mahina, who was a priestess for the Water Empyrean Amenok. In a tasteless maneuver, agents of the Abbey took over Palamedes' temple, where they discovered that Kamoana was compatible to be its Therian. The praetors forcibly corrupted Kamoana with malevolence and sealed her in the temple to absorb demons. Discovering this, Mahina herself turned into a demon out of pure rage. She stormed the temple hoping to save her daughter, but by then, it was too late. Kamoana, in her form as a tree demon, accidentally devoured her mom. She wishes to become a priestess like her mom, but can't while she's a demon. Regardless, she is rescued by Velvet's crew and taken on board their ship. Even as a demon, she can still help save the world, and is repaid for her efforts by getting turned back into a human by the end of the game. I'm glad she ultimately gets a happy ending, raised by crew members who adopt her. Given how she's just a child, though, my interest in her is platonic, but good lord is she cute. Kamoana's happiness came about through the love of her adoptive mother, Medissa, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. At first, Medissa was a single mom and devout believer in the Abbey. Hoping to give her daughter Diana a new father, Medissa got engaged to one of the Abbey's exorcists. Unfortunately, Diana took this the wrong way, thinking Medissa no longer loved her. These feelings turned to jealousy and anger. Before long, Diana had become a demon. Even so, Medissa tried to protect her daughter, keeping it a secret. Eventually, though, her fiancé found out and responded by slaying Diana. In turn, this drove Medissa to madness. She killed her fiancé and locked herself inside the town sanctuary, screaming that demons deserve love too. The Abbey meant to execute her, but instead convinced her to become a Therian. By absorbing malevolence, she could prevent others from being tainted like her daughter was. Transformed into a serpentine demon, Medissa was sealed away in the Faldees ruins until Velvet's crew came knocking. At first, Medissa swore fealty to her new role, but changed her mind upon meeting Kamoana and learning how the Abbey would turn even children into Therians. Medissa joins Velvet in order to be a surrogate mother to the lonely girl. It is a touching combination, a mother who lost her daughter, adopting a daughter who lost her mother. By game's end, she too returns to being human, staying on as Kamoana's guardian. Now, if you're like me, you have no real interest in old ladies and such, not in this context anyway, but I still want to give some credit to two wise women in Berseria. First is Tabatha Baskerville, boss of the Bloodwing Butterflies, a guild that opposes the Abbey. By extension, her group also assists Velvet's crew, for a price anyway. Luckily, the tasks she gives Velvet just so happen to hurt the Abbey, so they're not exactly out of the way. It's good to have someone like her as an informant. Then there's Grimoirh, the Normine sage who trained Magilou. Velvet's crew seeks her out in Isolde when they need help deciphering an ancient text. At first, she has no intention of helping, but caves when she sees the Moloch Lafisette's earnest desire for learning. Obviously, she's not human, but she has a sort of MILF-like quality to her voice and personality. Even if she's not attractive per se, she's still interesting. Our final waifu is one of the game's antagonists, Teresa Linares, another top exorcist at the Abbey. She and her half-brother Oscar operate out of Helives and are loyal to the Abbey's cause. The people of Helives refer to her as the Frozen Queen, as she's basically a frigid bitch, only ever showing kindness to Oscar. Apparently, some folks are into that. When it comes to Oscar, she'd easily sacrifice her life for him and is enraged to learn Velvet wounded him at Prison Island. Their sibling bond is perhaps too close, as Oscar once gave her a pair of earrings meant for the woman he loved. Beyond her brother, Teresa's cold attitude extends to how she treats her Malachim, whom she refers to merely as number 1 and number 2. Time and again, she proves a formidable opponent, but the situation changes when she discovers Oscar is being used as a test subject for a new kind of Moloch fusion, armatization. It's extremely dangerous, and in order to stop Oscar from going through with the experiment, Teresa allows herself to be captured by Velvet. She wants Velvet to defeat Oscar without killing him. During their actual confrontation, however, Teresa knocks Oscar out and chooses to fight Velvet's party after fusing with Aetherium. She's willing to become a monster for his sake. In turn, Oscar regains consciousness and abuses armatization to its breaking point. Velvet has no choice but to kill him before malevolence transforms him into a dragon. With the only love in her life dead, Teresa throws her all into a final charge against Velvet, and upon defeat, she spends her last moments clinging to Oscar. Not gonna lie, I feel bad for them. For as much as they love each other, though, they were ultimately doing more harm than help for the world. Still, Teresa makes for a phenomenal villain. With that, all 11 of Berseria's waifu are now covered in this series. Don't forget to check out my Waifu Files playlist for so many other episodes. Also, let me know which anime or games you want to see me cover in the comments below. See you next time!
Thanks for watching!
If you enjoy this channel, help us grow by liking, commenting, sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and
most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all our anime lore, discussions, and Let's Play content.
You can support us directly through Patreon, Subscribestar, or a YouTube membership, all of which come with benefits like spicy exclusive vids and early access.
As always, celebrate your fandom! I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters. Video Gamer 75, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Samuel Gersten, The Nonchalant Ostrich, Otaku Mom, Jens Bauman, Mystic Samurai 1983, Lord Omagoden, Freebrick, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Link Pendrago, Observer Bellis, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Zamas Autonomous, Scout, Yuki Eidos, Crow Kalem, Saul Soto, Tristan Riggin, Meifu Mado, Caitlin P, Sogai CH, Vladimir Ovna, The Taz 96, Jonathan Padua, Kengo X77, Hairsha of E-Rated Hands, Alistair Bernadotte, and Akakaze Yume. Thank you all so much.